Hello YouTube, this video is about the Mr. Gasket Universal Throttle Cable Kit and Speedway's mount to the firewall gas pedal. I had the future driver of this gasser sit in the car and we positioned the throttle pedal where she wants it. She wants it right there, so it's underneath her foot. We're going to have to do some work in order to get it there because the firewall is slanted. I think the best way to get about that is to remove the steering column and the seat. Don't worry, that won't take any time. It'll be done just like this. What we need is a flat spot to mount the gas pedal on. And what I've done is made up a little pattern to give us a little flat spot to mount the gas pedal on. So we're going to go cut this piece of metal out and weld it in. Here we have our bracket to hold the throttle cable in place. We've got nuts welded to the back side, so all we have to do is bolt it up. And now we're going to tack it into position. We'll grind the welds off so it looks nice. And now it looks like it belongs there. With the bracket cooled down, we can bolt our Speedway bolt to the firewall universal throttle pedal to the bracket and tighten it down. We have the throttle pedal bolted to the firewall, and now we can run the cable. The next thing we have to do is drill a hole through the firewall for the throttle cable to come through. And we want that hole to be at the highest point of the arc of the throttle pedal lever. So we're going to put that right here. I'm going to move it over just a little bit because it'll be better for the engine compartment. And we'll drill our hole. The hole size has to be 3/8 of an inch. So we'll enlarge the 1/8 inch hole. And check to see where we came through on the firewall. The hole is in not too bad of a position. It's above the valve cover, and we'll run the cable underneath the spark plug wires. The next step in this operation is to remove the inner cable from the outside cable. Unscrew the nut on the end of the cable. Take one of the washers that's provided in the kit and slide it over the end of the cable. Take the other washer with you. Slide the cable through the hole that we just created. Take the washer that you took with you and the nut from the end of the cable and screw it on. And that lines up nicely with the throttle pedal. I think it's a little long. What I'll do is I'll cut it off and put it through again. Here we are cutting the sleeve off so it'll be flush with the firewall. We'll fit the cable housing back through the hole and put our washer and nut back on. And now the cable housing is just flush with the nut. What happens next is we mount the throttle cable linkage to the carburetor. My coil's in the way. This is a drag car. I don't need the kick-down linkage. So we're going to cut this off, but we're going to leave the spring mount on so I have a return spring. Now I want to cut this so that I save this mount for the return spring. So I'm going to cut it at an angle right across there. We'll smooth out the sharp edges. With the kickdown linkage bracket removed, the coil is still in the way. We're going to have to move the coil a little bit, and all you have to do is loosen the mounting bolts, loosen the clamp, slide the coil a little bit more towards the firewall, and we'll have the clearance. I'll take care of that. With the coil moved further back in the mounting bracket, we can now put our modified throttle cable bracket in place. The throttle cable bracket has an adjustment in it, so I've put the mount for the throttle cable in the center of the adjustment so that I can change it if I change carburetors. We can now bolt it on and tighten it down. We now have a place to run our throttle cable to. We're now ready to cut the throttle cable to length. We want to make sure that this metal sleeve on the cable housing is in back of the cut. We removed the two black plastic pieces from the kit. This black plastic piece fits into here, and this black plastic piece fits over the end of the cable. So you have to take into account the length of the piece that plugs into the throttle cable bracket and the piece that goes on the end of the cable. So that's about 1 inch. So we want to cut the cable about 1 inch shorter than the throttle cable bracket. The way to do that is to route your throttle cable where you want it. Take a piece of electrical tape and mark the cable where you're going to cut it. So my mark is about 1 inch back of the throttle cable bracket. We're going to cut it right there. I've carefully put the cable in the vise so as not to crush it. I have the little metal sleeve on the cable between the cut and the part that goes through the firewall. They tell you to cut the cable with a fine-tooth hacksaw, but I'm going to use my cutoff wheel. Remove the tape. Slide the sleeve to the end of the cable. Take the little plastic adapter that goes over the end of the cable, slide it on, and take the clip that holds the cable into the throttle bracket and slide that onto the plastic adapter. Now this is a loose fit, so don't let it come off. Take your throttle cable and put it through the firewall and slide the clip into the throttle cable bracket. As a personal note, I'm not really happy with this joint here, but that's the way they want it done. Now we're ready to assemble the inner cable, and this is the clevis that you use for an aftermarket throttle pedal. You have to carefully remove the clip that's on the pin in the clevis. Don't lose it. Slide the inner cable through the clevis. Go inside the car. Slide the inner cable through the adapter that's in the firewall. Go outside the car and pull the cable all the way through. Pull the clevis out of the firewall and put it over the lever for the throttle pedal. Take the pin for the clevis and slide it in. Unfortunately, it doesn't go in. The hole in the pedal is too small. So we're going to have to drill out the holes in the pedal. I'm going to do all three in case I want to make an adjustment. Take the clevis, and I'm going to put it in the upper hole because I want the fastest response I can get, and put the clip in. Take the threaded stud from the kit and put it in the arm of your carburetor and tighten it into position. Take the cable adjuster, and what I would advise you to do is put it in the middle of the threads. You can do that by setting the set screw about halfway and screw that back into the adjuster so that you're about halfway in. Put it on the carburetor. Take the cable with all the slack taken out of it, and we're going to cut it right there. Use a sharp pair of and cut the cable. Take the adjuster back off the carburetor. Back the Allen nut out with the Allen wrench that they provide. Slide the cable into the adjuster. Put it back on the carburetor. Take the slack out and tighten the Allen wrench down. That gives you a little extra cable if you want to change the adjustment. Take the jam nut and back it down to the adjuster. Tighten your jam nut down so that the adjuster is not going to move. Take the cotter pin that's supplied in the kit and put it in the end of the pin that's in the carburetor and bend it over, and it's installed. For drag racing, I had to put a secondary spring in, a two-stage spring actually, from the bottom lever to our spring hold-off right there, in case the throttle doesn't return with the carburetor spring. So if we go inside and step on the gas pedal, we get full throttle, and it all works without binding. Here is what it looks like on the inside of the car. We now have completed the installation of Speedway's mount to the firewall throttle pedal and the Mr. Gasket Universal Throttle Cable Kit. And our carburetor works the way it should be. I believe we've accomplished what we set out to do. If you enjoyed this video, there'll be more.